This sentence has 31 letters. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 31, and indeed it does. But what about this pie chart, which claims to have 35% vowels and 65% consonants? Well, here's all the vowels isolated.
How the fuck did I get top comment on this video?
And there are 35 of them. And here's all the consonants isolated, and there are 65 of them, so it checks out. So that's a fun little pie chart, but what about this bar graph, which is titled the number of words of each length in this bar graph? So it's referring to itself. It's asking how many words are inside of me. Well, how many two-letter words are there in this entire image? OF, OF, IN. That's 3 of them. What about 3-letter words? BAR, TWO, SIX. That's also 3 of them. And now what about 4-letter words? Each, this, 5, 4, 5. That's 5 of them. And of course next, what about 5-letter words? Words, graph, 3383. Words, words, words.
Like Hamlet, all about words, words, words.
Words, words. That's 11 of them, a record high. And finally, what about 6-letter words? Number, length, 11. Letter, 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 letter. That's 8 6-letter words. So this bar chart checks out too. Hooray! Thanks for the positive feedback. You might be curious, how does one make charts like these? And to be honest, it's just trial and error. You know that game we'd play in school where you pick any random number like 142,857, write it out in English words and count the letters, in this case 48, and repeat the process with that new number? So 48 has 10 letters, 10 has 3 letters, 3 has 5 letters, and 5 has 4 letters? The game stated that no matter what number you start with, you'll always end at 4, and since 4 itself has 4 letters, once you're at 4, you stay there. Well, this game is pretty fun, and we'll use a similar process of picking a random number and seeing where it takes us to create all of those self-referential graphs. So let's start with the sentence, the one that says how many letters it has. To do this, let's start by making an initial guess of how long a typical sentence is. I'm feeling 20, not too long, not too short. And if it's wrong, well, let's just see where it takes us. So let's type in the sentence, this sentence has 20 letters. Of course, we didn't expect to get it right on the first try, and our program tells us we have 28 letters. So all we have to do is edit the text to replace 20 with 28 letters. But due to this update, the program now tells us that we have 33 letters. So let's edit it again by replacing the letter saying 28 with 33. And with that, by coincidence, this sentence indeed has 33 letters, so we found a valid solution. We are so smart! Let's visualize this using graph theory. So we started at 20, but trying that resulted in 28 letters. So then we moved on to 28, but that led us to 33. And then it turns out that 33 leads to itself, so it's a solution. Now I'm curious, what if we were to fill out this graph starting from all other numbers from 20 to 34? Surprisingly, it turns out that 31 is also a solution, which I guess makes sense because 1 has 2 fewer letters than 3, while also being 2 smaller in quantity. But let's search through the rest of this graph to see if any other weird patterns arise. Nothing interesting, I guess. Here are a couple other ways to visualize the flow from number to number for this self-referential sentence. But long story short, 31 and 33 are our only solutions. Now let's move on to the pie chart, which is 1 degree more complicated than the sentence because there's 2 variables at play, the number of vowels and the number of consonants. To create this pie chart, let's start with the title, Number of Vowels and Consonants in this pie chart. And then we start with an initial guess. Maybe vowels take up about 1/3 of typical English, so let's guess there's 20 of them. And then for the consonants, let's guess there's around 45. As a result, we can see that this message actually contains 25 vowels and 47 consonants, but let's iterate on this and see if we can arrive at a valid solution. So as we saw, 2045 leads to 2547. Let's draw an arrow pointing there. Then, if we write a new sentence that says there are 25 vowels and 47 consonants, that sentence has 27 vowels and 50 consonants. So let's draw a second arrow pointing there. It's pretty clear to see how to repeat this process from here. Our third sentence, saying 27 vowels and 50 consonants, ends up actually having 25 vowels and 48 consonants. It feels like we're endlessly jumping from place to place, but I promise the fourth sentence will be interesting. Why? Well, it leads us back to 2750, which is a place we've already been before. So we end up in a loop of period 2 between 2548 and 2750, and we'll never arrive at a valid solution, which is a node that points to itself. That's okay, let's just try starting from 21 vowels and 45 consonants, a different initial condition. But it turns out that after 4 iterations, that leads us into the same loop of 2548, 2750, so we are no closer to finding a solution. If we keep going down this line of initial conditions, eventually we find that 26 vowels and 49 consonants is a valid solution. Hooray! Time for a sanity check. Number of vowels and consonants in this pie chart. Vowels, 26. Consonants, 49. 26, 49? Boom! It checks out! So there you go, now you know everything you need to make your own self-referential pie chart, and here's what I drew in MS Paint in like 30 seconds. So some attempts failed and others succeeded. I guess the lesson here is that not all roads lead to Rome. Just because you picked a reasonable initial guess doesn't mean you're guaranteed to stumble upon the solution you want. Now, as the visualization of this 10x10 grid starts filling up, I think we can all agree that it's getting harder and harder to read. Like, if I wanted to know what proportion of cases lead to that dreaded 2548, 2750 loop, versus which cases lead to the coveted 2649 solution, how would I read that proportion from this graph? It's almost impossible. Well, here's the same graph organized more cleanly using Gephi. I have each node colored based on the distance it is from falling into a stable pattern. Red means it's in the stable pattern already, whether that's the 2-node loop, which you can see by the 2A arrow, or the valid solution, which you can see with the arrow pointing to itself. It's pretty crazy that only 14 cases will lead you to the solution, whereas 86%, the vast majority, will lead you astray. Anyway, the pie chart that I showed you at the beginning of the video was a bit different than the one we just made together. See, in the original one, I mentioned percentages, not just counts, because pie charts typically show proportions of the whole, which is what percentages represent. So how does that change things? Well, dividing by any non-round number, like 97, would result in annoying decimals, so I added another restriction that the total number of all letters should add up to 100. Then every letter is exactly 1 percentage point. Clean and simple. And that restriction can be visualized as a cyan diagonal line where consonants plus vowels equals 100 on our graph. Using this template of starter words and the restriction that the solution must land on this cyan line, was I able to find a solution? No, but here's one weird trick that all doctors hate. Sneak this sassy little word circle into the title, which has 4 extra consonants and 2 extra vowels, and that changes everything. Now, 35 vowels plus 65 consonants equals 100 is a valid solution to our pie chart. That's called using your brain and breaking the rules. And using your brain while breaking the rules. On to the 5-way bar graph. This one is harder to visualize all the options for because whereas the sentence had 1 dimension of freedom and the pie chart had 2, this one has 5. And I don't want to get into crazy 5D tesseract visualizations right now. Also, when I was considering how to do this, I was worried because the lowest and highest bars have a range of 8, meaning that if 5 different bars each had 9 options, that's 9 to the 5th equals 59,049 possibilities to test. That's way too high. Let's just try experimenting and see where that takes us. So we'll start with the title text, number of words of each length in this bar graph, and then let's just make random guesses for how many 2-letter words there are. Well, those are pretty short and don't happen often, so 3 maybe? And then for 3-letter words, those are a little longer, and numbers themselves can have 3 letters, so maybe a bit higher. I'll say 4. For 4-letter words, so I'm gonna guess 7. And then the big daddy of them all, the 5-letter words, like 9. And then finally the longest words, the 6-letter ones, I'm gonna guess it's lower, 7. Luckily for us, we have this UI at the bottom that updates live, calculating the actual number of words of each length as we're typing it. If the UI also said 3, 4, 7, 9, 7, we'd be done. But it doesn't, it says 3, 3, 6, 11, 7 instead. So let's update our message to reflect those new numbers. 3, 3, 6, 11, 7. Does this result in a solution? Well, no. 3, 4, 4, 11, 8. The UI now says 3, 3, 6, 10, 8. It's still different. 3, 3, 6, 10, 8. And now the UI says 3, 5, 4, 11, 7. But as we type in our 5th guess, I just have a hunch that something interesting is on the horizon, something different that we haven't seen before. I don't know, it just feels like this chain can't go on forever and the computer wants to tell us that something is brewing. The UI now tells us it's 3, 3, 6, 10, 8, which is actually the state we were just at before. So we've already seen this, and if we were to type that in, we'd end up going in a loop between 3, 3, 6, 10, 8, and 3, 5, 4, 11, 7, and it just go on forever. Therefore, to find a valid solution, we're gonna have to try something new. But remember, there's still 59,000 cases to test, which is way too many for one person to do. But in truth, it's not actually that crazy because we know a few limitations. First, we're guaranteed to have exactly 30 words, so you can remove all options that have more or less. And not only that, these 10 words in the title are locked into place. They won't change. Also, if you think about it, the labels at the bottom won't change either. So there are only 5 words of the total 30 that are even up for grabs, so to speak. So, before doing any experimentation, we already know that we have 3 guaranteed 2-letter words, 3 guaranteed 3-letter words, 4 guaranteed 4-letter words, 8 guaranteed 5-letter words, and 7 guaranteed 6-letter words. Only the 5 remaining words at the top of the bars are uncertain. On top of that, the only possible number words are between 3 and 6 letters. That's only 4 options. So taking that all together, we only have 8 choose 5 equals 56 possibilities to consider. That's completely reasonable to do. It's even fewer than we considered for the pie chart. By the way, here's a clever math trick if you want to calculate how many ways n elements can take on k cases, if duplicates are allowed and order doesn't matter. So as a refresher, these are the 56 possibilities of the lengths of the words that appear at the top of the bars in our bar graph. But we're not caring about what the words actually say or the order of the words. It's only the lengths that matter. But remember the 25 locked in stone words from before? The non-negotiable 3, 3, 4, 8, 7? We can't forget about those, so if we add the 56 possibilities onto the locked 25 words, we end up with this set of 56, which tells us the possibilities of the total counts of word lengths across the entire image. I'll call these the image summaries. As a spoiler, we can see the trusty 3, 3, 5, 11, 8, which ends up being our valid solution. Next, we want to know where each image summary points to, and hope we can find ones that point to themselves, solutions. So I wrote this Python code to find each summary's pointer, but I don't want to get into the specifics of how I did that. So let's just look at the finished product in Gephi. Ta-da! Again, nodes are colored by how many steps it will take to fall into a stable pattern, with blue meaning there's still a long way to go, and red meaning fully stable. Here's the path that led us to that infinite loop a few minutes ago. It turns out there's actually 2 infinite loops, and while I was trying to create this chart a few weeks ago, I actually got stuck in the other loop, so you really gotta beware. Anyway, this means that 3, 3, 5, 11, 8 is the only valid solution ever, assuming we don't sneak any extra words in, and you can see that it's self-referential by this tiny little edge pointing to itself. Overall, I'm shocked how close the 3 islands are in population, 19, 17, and 20. And also, there is one weird exception I want to bring up. On Winner's Island, we find the elusive 13, which can only be achieved by dumping all 5 words into the 5-letter bucket, resulting in 8 plus 5 equals 13. Now, here's the thing. 13 is 8 letters.
She ate.
That's higher than the upper bound. None of these graphs are designed to hold anything higher than 6. So to make this more mathematically correct, I was thinking of adding an edge case here, where 2 more bars could be added for 7 and 8 letter words or something, but then that would also add 6 more words to the labels at the bottom, and then 6 more words would mean the counts would also increase by 6, causing a runaway explosion of words which I just don't have time for. So in this simulation, 13 is considered a 6-letter word, 13. So that's how I made these 3 self-referential graphs. Thanks for watching this video. I recommend you try to make your own self-referential graphs, and I'll see you later. Bye!